and welcome back to the Now What Summit. I am super excited about this session with Jeff because it's all about starting the year. And I taught middle school, and once you get them trained, things go so well. But it's those first days are so important. And I think that is exceptionally true with a thinking classroom. What do you think, Jeff?
Absolutely. I also taught middle school for years, and if you don't get them within those first few weeks, you've got an uphill battle.
Yeah. So I'm excited about what you're going to share. So Jeff, take it away.
Thank you, Marty. All right. This morning or this afternoon, wherever you are, I really want to spend just a few minutes talking about those first days and those first few weeks of school, because as Marty said, it is so important, especially with building your thinking classroom strategies. If you have tried any of these strategies and you've done it within the middle of the year or sometime after the start, you know how tough it is. You know how tough it is to change their patterns, change their behaviors, change their thinking. And so we're going to hopefully in the next 20 minutes give you just a little bit of help and some good tips with that. My name is Jeff Harker, and I am a professional learning specialist with Keep Indiana Learning. You can follow me on Twitter at JeffHarker314. Yep, I'm a big pie nerd. And let's go ahead and just dive in here. All right, so let's go to, lost them. Marty, I lost them.
Yes, can you bring them back and I will share them again with everyone?
Yes, sorry about that.
No problem.
I didn't know how to change the screen.
There we go. Click the arrow and see if it'll advance it.
Great.
There we go.
Thank you, Marty.
You're welcome.
All right. Gosh, this feels so much like middle school.
It does.
Never a dull moment.
Nope.
So first, what we've got to do is break that cycle that the students are coming in with. Many of them come in with, by the time they hit middle school, years of practice thinking, I'm no good at math. I hate math. Math is not for me. I'm not a mathy person. And they've sat in classroom after classroom after classroom, not thinking. They're very good at hiding. They're very good at sliding under the radar. And many of them go through their day, their middle school days, and they really don't do much, let alone much thinking. And so our aim with building thinking classrooms in those first couple of weeks is to break that cycle and create a new routine for them. We want to activate their brain. There's actually a part of your brain that is the problem-solving center, and we can activate that. And when we activate that, then what comes after goes through much easier. It's like opening up the filter a little bit. So we want to create a new routine, but this requires a trade and a little trust. Stay with me. The trade, you have to be willing to give away time. You have to be willing to give away time. I'm going to say that one more time because I know who I'm talking to. I'm talking to teachers. I was there for 30 years. I know what you're thinking. I have so little time now and you want me to give it away? What? It's that old adage, you have to go slow to go fast. What I'm going to ask you to do, and it's what Peter asks you to do in the Building Thinking Classrooms book, is take those first 2 weeks, yes, 10 days, 2 weeks, and start the year with doing nothing but non-curricular tasks. You're not going to jump into algebra the first day. You're not going to jump into your 6th grade classroom content the first day. You're not going to jump into fractions or whatever it is that first day. you're going to stay with non-curricular tasks. Now, those non-curricular tasks may have a mathematical solution. They might not. They might take up the whole period with one problem. It might be a series of smaller tasks, puzzles. It might be story problems, but it is non-curricular. You are not using these tasks to teach a particular skill or a particular content. All right. And yes, I'm going to repeat it. For 2 weeks, they've been practicing for years this idea that I'm bad at math and math is no fun. You can't break that in a day. Okay, it's going to take a little time, right? Some examples of some non-curricular tasks. Here's one that's a classic. I love it. It's in a lot of textbooks, and it's called the locker problem. It's adjusted here for 30 lockers, although most textbooks, I think, have it where they're finding out what happens to 100 lockers. And this is an example of a problem that probably would take most or all of, say, a 45 or 50-minute period. Depending on the level of the students, it could take longer if you were in a block of 80 or 90 minutes. At the lower levels, I'm saying 5th, 6th, 7th grade. But even 2nd and 3rd graders can do this. And instead of 30, change it to 25 or 20. If you get too small, if you try and say, oh, they're only 2nd graders, I want to do 10 lockers. 10 lockers probably isn't enough to find any kind of pattern in the numbers. But 2nd graders, and even if 2nd graders don't have the vocabulary necessary to describe the pattern, they can find the pattern. They can do this. And Algebra 2 students can do this. And then we can ask them why and what would happen to the 200th locker and the 1000th locker. And there's all kinds of extensions that we can ask them. So a problem like this, the story problem, some people call them poster problems, although you should be doing these more than just on Poster Fridays or Fun Fridays. We'll talk about Fun Fridays in a minute. But these problems can take the entire period. And again, it's not about the answer. In fact, in my classroom, when we did these kind of problems, I never gave the answer. But I let the kids come up with what is right or what makes sense to them. But it's about the process. Some other types, some shorter types of problems. I love this one. It's a date math problem. I like it because it changes every day. You can make it easy or hard. It's very easy to scaffold, but you take the date and make an equation out of it. The more you limit what they can use as far as symbols, the harder it is. If you take out the 2-0 and just do something like 11723, that makes it more difficult. Having that 0 in there, a 0 tends to make things a lot easier. You can make it easier by adding in symbols like square roots and exponents and things like that. But I love this because it can be very short. This is something you could do at the beginning of a class for 3 minutes and see what they can come up with. Or as I've done here, you can say, make 10 equations that are true, 10 different ones, and then spend some time comparing with other groups around the room. You could do all kinds of things. You could have them do their birthday as an extension, or the whole week that their birthday was, something like that. But it can be very quick, or it can take more time if you want it to. There are other things like puzzle kinds of problems, logic puzzles, just kind of figure puzzles, tangrams, things like that. There's all kinds of things that you can do to get kids thinking. The other thing that you can do during this time, these 2 weeks of just these non-curricular tasks is teach them things like how to work in groups, how to communicate to each other, how to communicate mathematically. If you're following the Building Thinking Classroom's protocols, you're working with visibly random groupings every day, and you're building that routine in. There's so much that can go on during those first 2 weeks that is good stuff that you want to do, that you always say, oh, I don't have time for that. I would do groups and I would teach them how to do groups better, but I don't have time to do that. Now you do. You have those first 2 weeks of school. When you're not worried about the curriculum, you're worried about the process. You're worried about their thinking and activating the problem-solving parts of their brain. It will be a fantastic 2 weeks, a fun 2 weeks. You're training your kids to walk in your room and think, oh, this is the class where I have to think. This is the class where I have to talk to other people. This is the class where I have to use my brain. Not, oh, this is math. Oh yeah, I hate math. Okay, we're undoing all of that. All right? We're undoing it. Benefits, we just talked about a couple of them. It establishes a routine of thinking, breaks those non-thinking habits, practice working in groups, and getting students used to that random grouping that is so important. However, there's a catch to this. There's a catch. Language is important. I am guilty of this as well. In the years that I was teaching, I am so guilty of this, especially with fractions. I called them everything: messy fractions, yucky fractions, gross fractions. I know we don't like fractions, but I said all those things about fractions. And then we talk about things that are fun in math class, but it's often something that's other than math. And I gave some examples here of some things I've used myself or things I've heard, oh, we're going to have a fun Friday next week, or let's start with something fun today, then we'll get to our work. Put your homework away now, let's have some fun and do a Kahoot or something like that. We'll do some fun review tomorrow. All that is, it sounds right in our mind, and we want the kids to have fun and think that it's fun. But you said all of that, and all they heard was math isn't fun. This other stuff is fun, but math isn't fun. We were doing math, now we have to put that away and do something fun, which means math isn't fun. And so language is really important. When you're doing these non-curricular tasks for the first 2 weeks, talk about how much fun they are. Talk about how fun it is thinking, how fun it is to come up with 4 different ways of doing something. Talk about how exciting that is, and get the kids to talk about what they like about it and the fun that they're having. But when you then go into the curricular stuff, when it's time to start in chapter 1, or when it's time to start with integers or fractions, don't say, okay, that was fun, but now we're going to do math. You've just told them math isn't fun anymore. Instead of that, say things like, okay, let's do some more activities. Let's do some more thinking. Or you did such a good job thinking at that. You did great. Let's do some more. Let's think about this next one. Let's apply those strategies and skills that we just learned to this new problem. Make it seamless so that they don't really see a difference between the non-curricular tasks and the curricular tasks you want them to do. Whether it's homework or a worksheet or a task or a problem or whatever it is. If you want them to think about it and use the same strategies for the curricular tasks as the non-curricular tasks, you've got to make that transition seamless, right? And really watch your vocabulary. Watch your vocabulary. Be very careful not to signal that something else was fun, but now we have to do math. We want them to put math in the same category as those other things that were fun. Okay? We've spent 2 weeks activating their brains. They're thinking, they're talking to each other, they're communicating. They've got a habit now of coming in the room and getting started and working. Wouldn't that be great if they just came in and they knew the routine and they went and got their work and got in groups and got started? Wouldn't that be awesome? And you just kind of sat back and watched and said, oh yeah, I'll be over there to answer your question in a minute. You see if you can answer it first. How awesome would that be? It's totally possible. It's totally possible. But you have to be willing to make the trade. In the classrooms where I have seen this happen, where teachers have made this kind of a trade, I'm having trouble putting it into words. It's so amazing. I hear things like, we get so much more work done in our curriculum because the students are actually working. They come in and they actually get to work. When I give them a task, I don't have to walk around for 20 minutes and say, hey, open your book, get started, open your Chromebook. 15 minutes later, I don't have to say to someone, get out a piece of paper and go find your group. Your group's over there. You don't have to do that because for lack of a better word, you've trained them, right? Right? And isn't that why we always say, oh, well, I don't do that group work. It takes too long to train them, right? Because we tried it once in October and they wouldn't do it, right? And they complained and they didn't turn anything in and they didn't get their work done and we gave up. We're just as bad as the kids, right? You've got to be consistent and you've got to start at the beginning and you've got to train them. But it can be done and the results can be fantastic. So go slow at the beginning, put off your curriculum to go fast at the end, right? To go faster. You can get through so much more than you ever imagined if you're willing to give up a little bit of time at the beginning. And I know it's a leap of faith. I guess this is not the politically correct way to say this, but what I'm thinking in my brain is, how's it working the way you're doing it now? I know for me in my classroom, it took me weeks. I felt like it took me weeks to train a new group, to do things the way I wanted them to do them, to get into a routine. Because I was trying to teach them the curriculum at the same time while I was trying to teach them all these strategies and procedures and behaviors. And it was hard. They had a lot to think about. And it took so much time. If I had condensed all of that into the first week or two of school and just focused on those behaviors and procedures and left my curriculum till later, man, we'd have gone really slow at the beginning, but we could have absolutely run sprinting from then on. We could have gotten through so much. It's just amazing how your students will attack problems. It's just amazing. So let's review real quick. Non-curricular tasks from day one. Day one. I know some of you will say, oh, but my school has these first 2 days. We have to go through the handbook, or we have to do this, or we have to do that. Fine. Do that. Throw in maybe one of those date puzzles at the beginning for the first 3 minutes, then go in and do the handbook. Okay. Get through that stuff that the school is requiring of you. But then get to these non-curricular tasks right away. and go right into the curriculum then. From those first 2 weeks, don't miss a beat. Watch your vocabulary and say, you guys did an awesome job with this problem last Friday. Let's do another one today. And hit them with something to open up chapter 1. Okay. It'll be amazing. Take the leap of faith, take the jump, step off the cliff. I know it'll feel like a cliff. Step off the cliff. We'll be there to support you if you need it. All right? All right. Thank you so much. My email is there. Email me if you have any questions. I would love to hear from you, and email me and let me know how it goes. I'd love to hear from you as well about that. Thank you so much.